right, welcome to Huddle Buddies. We got a special guest today. It is not Danny. It is Telmo. Say hi, everybody, Telmo.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
He sounds really cool. We do not sound that cool, do we, Danny?
No.
All right, we're going to get right to it. Telmo is a friend. He's been a friend for a while, and he is a Giants fan. We're going to put that out there just right now. So obviously I'm the Eagles fan. Danny's a Packers fan. Telmo's a Giants fan. So we're going to get some really good insight today. We're just going to get to it. The reason I brought you on, Telmo, and begged you to come on here and stuff is I have a quick question, a serious question for you to start off. And then we'll get to our would you rather questions, all right? Okay. Considering all the success Saquon has had this year, I'm reading this, by the way, because it's loaded. Considering all the success Saquon has had this year for the Eagles, and more importantly, how happy he seems, why couldn't he or the Giants achieve this while he was there? And who should take the fall, not just for the free agency debacle, but for the lack of success he had while with the Giants?
Of course, this would be a Saquon question coming from an Eagles fan, right? Of course.
Fire.
But it's a solid question, man. I don't think you can point it on just one person, one specific year or anything like that. And I'll preface this by saying I was on Instagram last night and I was scrolling through your normal stuff, and I see this Saquon's top 20 highlights for this year. Right. And I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at this and the one common thread that I saw in all of those highlights was every single one of those linemen was 4 or 5 yards forward before he hit the line of scrimmage, right? So great offensive line, amazing offensive line. Obviously, he's a talent. He's a generational talent. He's probably the best running back in the league and probably one of the best running backs we've seen in a long time. So when you add the best running back in the league to the best offensive line, arguably the best offensive line in the league, of course he's going to shine, right? And it's evident. He's a freak. To answer your question, I go back and I look at some of the tape from the Giants over the last 4 or 5 years while he was on the team. It was the opposite, man. He was getting hit in the backfield 2-3 yards deep, right? Anytime he made anything happen, it was by a miracle, right? He had these long, crazy runs. It's because he made a couple people miss and based off of his pure talent, right? So back to your question, who's to blame? It has to be the draft, man. It has to be the draft. It has to be the GMs. It has to be the previous GMs. Because if you go back and you look at the drafted players over the last 6, 7, 8 years, guys, we haven't hit on maybe one guy besides Malik Nabers. And Malik Nabers is amazing. He's a talent freak, right? However, how do you win games in the NFL? It's not by having star receivers. It's by having an awesome offensive line and pressure on the quarterback. It's been the same formula for years, right? It's been the same formula for years. And you go back and you look at the draft history for the Giants over the last little while. Besides Andrew Thomas, who did we hit on? Evan Neal? No, right? We haven't drafted well. And so when you don't draft well in those first 2 rounds, you have to pay the price in the long run. Part 1. Part 2, when you don't hit on your quarterback, it puts a lot of pressure on your running game. It puts a lot of pressure on your line. And when you already have a shaky line, it really doesn't matter who's getting the ball in the backfield, right? So GMs, not just the current one, I think you can put the blame on him for the way that things ended and how he let Saquon go. I could argue it was probably the right decision for the team to let him go. Because to be honest, we wouldn't have been any different. We wouldn't have been any different this year with him on the team. Maybe we win 1 more game. Maybe we win 2 more games. But we're not making the playoffs even with Saquon in the backfield. We're just not. It's a replica of what we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. So arguably for the team, it was the right move for him to go. But where he dropped the ball was Daniel Jones. Where he dropped the ball was the previous draft picks. Where he dropped the ball was David Gettleman before drafting, all these players that weren't linemen, right? You look at the drafted players over the last little while. The number 1 pick in the 2023 draft for us was Deontay Banks. Great. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been a number one pick. Besides that, the year before, we had Kayvon Thibodeau. Again, okay. The second pick in that draft, the second pick in the first round of that draft, Evan Neal. You guys, I mean, if anybody watches football, Evan Neal's probably the worst right tackle in the league by far. Like he sucks so bad that he's. I mean, if you follow any of the New York sports, he's like the guy that's picked on the most, and he should be rightfully so. He's just awful. The year before that, Kadarius Toney was our first round pick, right?
He was great for you guys.
Amazing, yeah. Right? And then you go back even one more year to that, to the 2020 draft. That's when we finally hit on Andrew Thomas and Xavier McKinney. You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for
that. That's another thing. You let him go, Saquon, except like you're just giving away some good players there.
It was a rough off season. But to answer your question, you look back at the previous 4, 5, 6 drafts. We have hit on one offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds of the draft in those last 5 years. So if you're asking me directly, you tie that directly to whoever is responsible for making those draft picks, whether that's the GM, whether that's the coach that's involved in making those decisions. Because if you have Saquon in the backfield, if it was me, I know who my first 2 round picks would be for the next 4 or 5 years. The minute I made him the second overall pick in the draft, the minute, and it would have been line. It would have been anybody from Clemson. It would have been anybody from Oklahoma or I'm sorry, Alabama, right? It would have been It would have been anybody from the SEC that can block for me. That's who I would have went and drafted for those first 2 first rounds for the next years. And then it's really rough when you look at the way the Hard Knocks thing went down, right? And it didn't make the team look good at all. You know, I think I have my thoughts on the GM.
Really quick. I think I talked about that. How I would. That's like I have never seen such compelling video evidence as to why you should fire a guy. Like, right? It's like being caught on camera doing things you shouldn't be doing in the office, and there's like they show it to you, HR shows it to you, like, dude, we gotta let you go. Okay, you can't do that to our It's literally the same kind of thing. Like, holy crap, we have video evidence of you making your son makes better decisions than you do. And so
unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. And not just that, but on top of that, the previous episode, you see John Mara in his office saying, I cannot see Saquon in an Eagles jersey. And what's the first thing that happens as soon as he's gone?
You know.
So the GMs, the verdict is out for me still on whether Daboll's a good coach or not. It's hard to coach a team who doesn't have a line. It's hard to coach a team who's been behind for so long on talent. So I don't want to throw him under the bus just yet, just because he hasn't had the talent to really determine if he's a great player, a great coach. But it's not just our current GM, right? David Gettleman did a number on our team for years. And we're paying the price for that now, right? And if you don't have a great quarterback, if you don't have an offensive line, and you don't have either of those 2 things in tandem, you're a very average team. And what's the worst thing that you can be in the NFL? Is a very average team. That's the worst thing you could be in the NFL, in my opinion, right? I would rather be 2-3 wins and have the opportunity to improve in the draft versus be right in the middle because you draft middle of the pack and you're never going to be better than that if you don't improve one way or the other. So yeah,
who would you like to have as the first round pick? As your first round pick, who do you think would be the most immediate impact? Because that's the thing, people forget. First round picks are, you take the best guy on the board. Okay, and there's for sure. And if it can fulfill a need, that's great. But who would be the first round pick that can change the trajectory, save Moore's job, basically?
I think it's a great question, and the answer is probably going to shock you because I've thought about this, and I've thought about this for a while. Right? Is the Giant fans were upset that we lost or that we won a game to put us out of that number 1 pick.
Get some luck.
We can't even lose appropriately, right? We don't even know how to lose right. That's been the way that this season has been. But I wasn't too upset about it, to be honest with you. At first, I was upset we won. But then as I let it sink in and we moved down to third, I thought, you know what? This is actually going to prevent us from making the wrong choice, in my opinion, and having to draft a quarterback with that number 1 pick. Where we're at now with the 3rd pick, personally, if it was me running the team, I don't want either of those quarterbacks because I don't think either of those guys are my franchise guy. It's just, that's the way I see it, right? I could be wrong, but I also have this elaborate plan in my head that probably will never happen, right? My plan is we take, what's his name from Colorado, the Hunter kid that won the Heisman. We take him at 3rd and we decide where we're going to play him, whether it's corner or receiver or both, who knows? But he's the most talented player in the draft. If he's there, you got to take him. And then we're going to suck next year. We're going to find a bridge quarterback. Somebody's going to come in and we're going to be rough. And ideally, I want the Manning kid the following year. Right?
You want Manning, but you don't you?
That's my plan, right? That's my plan. And I've had this structured in my head 100 different ways, right? Like even if we had the number 1 pick, hell, we trade that number 1 pick for 2 first-round picks the following year, and then we ensure that we get Manning, right? Like the following year. This is coming from a guy who has watched every single Giants game for the last 10 years and have suffered through awful games over the last little while. But we also had a great run, right? For a while there. We won 2 Super Bowls, and you look back at those 2 teams that won and made those incredible runs. What were the things that those teams had in common? There was 3 things. One, we've talked about it, a solid offensive line, pressure on the quarterback, right? We had those NASCAR packages on the edge that were always getting to the quarterback. And we had Eli, right? The verdict is out on Eli. Everybody has their opinion. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is he not? Whatever. However, he was stable and he put us in a position to win. Something we haven't had since he left. So those 3 things, how do you remedy those 3 things? The only way to do that is in the draft. And that's why we suck right now, because we haven't been able to address any of those things. So I love Saquon. I actually don't have any negative feelings for him. I hope the best for him, right? And he's shine and he's an amazing player. Does it suck that he went to the Eagles? Yes. But did I expect him to rush for 2,000 yards? Maybe not quite 2,000 yards, but let's be honest. You could put any of us in that backfield, and we're going to rush for 1,000 yards with that line. Any of us can do it with that offensive line. We can. It's that good. It's that good.
The only reason I would hit such high speeds is because I don't want to get hit. These guys chasing me, and they're most likely to be sound bites of me screaming.
My question is if the Giants do bad this next year, your head coach gone, then you bring in a new offensive coordinator?
I think everybody's gone next year. If we have a repeat of this year, there is absolutely no way that the GM, the coach, anybody is going to survive. And rightfully so, because if we're in a 3-win situation or a 2-win situation next year and we're picking, top 3 again, you're going to want a whole new regimen to come in and address that whole deal. You want your coach to pick your quarterback, you want your GM to pick your coach and build it that way. So I just don't see any way that, these guys survive another disastrous season.
But they need another disastrous season if you're going to get Arch.
Unfortunately, I've come to that conclusion. Yes, we really need to suck again next year in order for us to start the remedy of what this needs to be for us to be competitive again. It's just the way it is.
Just trade back for Daniel Jones. He's available right now. Get back.
You can get him on the cheap right now. That's a low blow.
Daniel Jones, man.
They're coming back down. Oh, man. We really appreciate that. No, that's great insight because, again, we've talked about it. And look, we don't like the quarterbacks either. They're in the draft. But we've had that question like, hey, why do these guys keep being mentioned? We're like, it's marketing. Man, like, I'll give it to Colorado. I'll give it to Shore and all the Sanders. Man, they know how to market. And so if we're talking football, X's and O's, this is not much of a – there's not any quarterback that I'd really want that I think will change our team. Not till next year or the year after. And so, and maybe that's a product of NIL. That's a lot of different things because guys aren't staying long enough in places to develop. Arch Manning, I'm surprised. Like it's. I think it's more pressure from his family being like, "Don't you dare leave that program. Like develop. You do it the right way." But all these other guys are chasing the money.
Well, and these guys that are chasing the money, you can't blame them. right? They're making more money as quarterbacks in college than they're probably going to make if they get drafted in the NFL. So you got to milk that as much as you can.
Yeah, Danny and I are thinking we're gonna, kind of dust off our cleats, go out there and see if we can go do some kicking. There's some teams out there.
Yeah, there's definitely some teams that need it.
I'll be a placeholder. Give me $100,000. I'll hold that ball so it won't even move.
Tell you what, I was watching the Eagles.
Game.
In my opinion, again, this is my opinion. The MVP of the whole thing was not Jalen, was not Saquon. It was the holder, bro. When those snaps were coming in there, and
man, reached out there.
Perfect holds, like in those conditions, like that's not easy to do. Obviously, kicking is extremely difficult, but you can't kick the ball if he doesn't hold it down there. That's part one.
See, we're in, Danny. We gotta this is the reason I'm going to the gym, man. I'm gonna walk on to Kentucky and just tell them, hey, I got you guys and stuff. We'll videotape that.
Yeah, I want to see that.
I'm sure that'll go really well.
A lot of people love it.
All right, well, let's hit up these would you rathers, okay? Tell me, I got a couple. Danny, you got a few?
I got a couple, yep.
Okay, we'll go every other then. All right, I'll start off. Tell me, would you rather have a guaranteed Hall of Fame quarterback for 10 years or a top 5 defense every year for 10 years?
Oh, I'm going to say quarterback.
Really?
I'm going to say quarterback. And here's why. Again, looking at the Giants teams, we had arguably a Hall of Fame quarterback for a really long time. We won 2 Super Bowls, beat arguably 2 of the best teams ever. And our defense was never in the top 5 in those years. We were good, but our defense was never in the top 5. You just cannot. Yeah, exactly. Both years. Both years we were. Yeah. Shoot. So you cannot overcome a terrible quarterback in the NFL. You just can't. It doesn't matter how good your defense is. You gotta have that. You gotta have a good quarterback. So if I'm picking the quarterback. I'm taking the quarterback.
There you go, Danny.
All right. Would you rather have Lamar Jackson as your starting quarterback for the Giants, or have Saquon Barkley back?
You said have Saquon Barkley back or who?
Or have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback.
Man, I gotta have Jackson. I gotta have Jackson back. I gotta have Jackson. You can't leave and come back. That's just not how it works. Once you're gone, you're gone. Hit the road. Go do what you need to do.
Okay. Dude, that is NFC East talk right there. Straight up, like, don't you dare come back.
Especially to the Eagles. You just can't come back from that.
Tell you all our secrets, how he gets it done. Everyone wants to know how he gets it done.
Yeah, and I just told you how he gets it done. No one touches him for 8 yards before he gets hit. That's how he does it. Those big monsters in front of him. Really that simple.
That's fair. I would actually probably pick Lamar at this point. It is a quarterback-friendly league, and I kind of get a guy who can, since you don't have a very good offensive line, I need somebody who can go run for his life when he needs to, and he's going to do it very often. So I would pick Lamar as well.
First, second, and third down, that's what he's doing. So it has to be Lamar.
Fair enough. All right. Would you rather win a Super Bowl but lose your starting quarterback to injury for the next season, or make the playoffs 10 straight years but never win it all?
I'm taking the Super Bowl, man. I'm taking the Super Bowl. You have to.
Man.
No, dude, you have to. And here's my logic behind that. The Giants won 2 Super Bowls fairly close to each other, and I got in a place where I was expecting them to be really good and continue to compete. And I didn't necessarily appreciate those years where they won, those magical runs. So you ask me right now, would I trade next year, whoever my starting quarterback is, for a Super Bowl run next year for the next X amount? 100%. Every time.
All right. Big middle finger to you, Arch Manning, from your super fan. Dan?
This isn't a would you rather. This is a different question. But if the Giants did not exist, who would be your NFL team?
I'll tell you who it won't be. It won't be the Eagles for one. That's who it won't be. It has to be the Bills. It has to be the Bills. It has to be the Bills. There's a couple. Yeah. Oh, good. Good. And here's a couple reasons for it. I think one, obviously, they have a great team. They have a great quarterback, but I also look back at their time when they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and didn't win any of those games. And I feel like, man, you really got to be a vested fan to stick through all that. And that they're just a classy organization, right? And I feel like, sorry, Brent, I hope this is their year. I do. So if I had to pick, it would be the Bills. It would be the Bills.
I wouldn't be so mad if they won, especially if we end up losing to the Commanders and stuff. I would love for them to absolutely demolish the Commanders. I think you would.
There is no way the Commanders are beating the Eagles this weekend. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
The Lions. I thought there's no way.
I was in shock.
Been a better team than the Lions. They just always have. I think from the get-go, they're just built too good.
But the Lions beat themselves. They really did. I mean, would they have 3 or 4 turnovers?
4. Yeah, 1 fumble and 2 interceptions.
There you go. You absolutely cannot come back from that. I don't care how good your quarterback is. I don't care how good your defense is. In a playoff game against any team that's in the playoffs, you're not winning that game.
I'm glad you said because we got them 5 turnovers. They still managed to win to beat us in the regular season. Because I'm like, that was embarrassing.
But it's not happening in a playoff game because playoff games are different. We know that. We know that. I just don't see that. The only way that Commanders win is if the Eagles have a debacle like that where they have 3-4 turnovers, and I just don't see that happening. As much as it pains me to say it, I just don't see that happening.
It's awful, man. You gotta pick your poison here. You're like, I hate both teams. Can they tie?
This literally is a living nightmare for a Giants fan. Think about this.
It could be worse. If the Cowboys were in there to replace any of these teams, it'd be worse.
Here's the thing about the Cowboys. They're my least hated team in the NFC East.
Really?
And here's why. One of my good friends is a huge Cowboys fan, and so him and I kind of do the same thing you guys do, where you're talking all the time, and he's made some really great points to me over the years, and so you kind of get invested in your guys' team a little bit, right? You want them to do well. I don't have a hate for the Cowboys. I don't. But I absolutely despise the Eagles. I can't do it, And then Saquon on top of it, I can't do it. I can't do it.
I'm okay with that. I respect that.
Well, and Brett, I mean, 10 years ago, I hated the Eagles just as much when we were working together. So it's not new. It's not new.
Well, it's got me. All right, let's see here. I'm going to throw in another would you rather. That one's stupid. All right. Yeah, we're going to do a goofy one. Change the pace a little bit. Would you rather have your team's kicker attempt a game-winning 70-yard field goal or let your punter throw a Hail Mary?
Depends on the kicker.
Your current
Depends on who my kicker is. My current kicker? No. I'm having the punter throw it up there.
Danny, you got McManus, man.
I hope we re-sign him next year. Keep McManus.
But, we go back to the Cowboys. You give me that kicker, and I'm taking him every time.
Holy crap. Considering how our kicker's doing, I'll take almost anybody right now. And I love Ellie. This thing, there's nothing to dislike about him. He really still looks like a kid out of college in that helmet. I don't know what it is. He hasn't aged at all since we picked him up rookie year. And but now it's like he can't seem to kick. So I'm like, I would actually pick our awesome holder / punter man to throw the Hail Mary on that one.
I'm telling you, he's the MVP. Don't be surprised if he does something crazy this weekend.
It's supposed to be cold and possibly snowy again. So, we could see another big day for Saquon. I'm not trying to surprise me. That's just a fact.
No, man, look, the fact that I wanted him to tear his ACL like game 2 or 3, I'm over that.
He asked me tickets to Philly, and I bought a bat.
I can't go to Philly, man. I can't. There's just no way. That's the worst place to go. A couple years ago when the Giants made the playoffs, right? And they beat the Vikings in the wild card game. The next game was in Philadelphia against the Eagles. Now, you guys killed us, whatever. And I was literally, I'm like, I'm going to this game. I'm going to this game. I'm going to this game. And I couldn't find anybody to go with me. Nobody would go with me. They're like, you're crazy, dude. You are not going to a Philadelphia Eagles game wearing a Giants jersey. You're just not doing it. And I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. It's not good for my health. It's not the smartest thing to do. So I bypassed it.
No. But here's a question, too. We brought this up in our other show. I'm going to ask you then, kind of I'm curious now, is what's your take on fans heckling other fans, like from other teams, from opposing teams? There was that one in Philly that they heckled the crap out of the Packers fans. Obviously they deserve it, but he took it a little too far, and he lost his job over it. Has been banned for life from the link, and so he never threw a punch or anything. But he said some unsavory things, I guess.
It's I think as long as it's tasteful, as long as it's a little crude is fine. I think you got to be in it's got to be in good fun, and once you step and cross over a specific line where you put your hands on somebody, or you start saying racial things, or you start getting to that level, at that point I think it becomes too much. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of the Eagles fans, they go right to that level. There's no in between, right? They don't understand. They don't have that. They just go right to it. And I'll tell you from my experience, when we went to the game in Minnesota, those fans are unbelievable. That place was loud. That place was rocking. And guess what? They were all respectful. Every single one of them.
Where were you sitting? That matters. No one's going to pay lower level.
No, we were upper bowl, like towards the bottom of the upper bowl. So it wasn't, we were with people who didn't have $1,000 seats, right? But they were very respectful. The one guy spilled beer on me, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It was an accident." That tempers didn't flare. After the game, everybody was cordial. There was no contention. You get your random people who are drunk, and they're going to say some things here and there, and that's where it gets a little bit escalated. But overall, my experience there was incredible. The fans were great, and there was a little back and forth, but never to the point where you were uncomfortable, right? Because at the end of the day, you're there with your kids, you're with your family, whoever you're with. You want to enjoy the environment. You want to enjoy the atmosphere, right? And to the Vikings fans, that place was crazy. The fans were awesome. It was great. We won, right? But the entire experience was great. Hence why I wanted to go to Philadelphia the next week, but I have a feeling that it would have been significantly different.
A little bit. We wouldn't be having this episode, though. Oh, Telmo coming from location in prison. Telmo.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows? I might still be buried over there somewhere under the stadium.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I appreciate that, because I'm curious. I mean, I'm from Philly, so it's not obviously not. And fans fight fans from the same team. There's some guys who just get in tussles, and there's always those idiots. And I've sat at different parts of the link. I've sat in the end zone. I've sat in the nosebleeds. I've sat, really some really nice sideline kind of seats. And I never had a problem, obviously. I'll tell you this, the end zone, that place is nuts. That place is crazy. Sure. And that's even
sure.
That place is insane.
Well, I think to your point, you got to know what you're getting yourself into when you go to specific places, right? If I was watching a Giants podcaster the other day, and he went to the Eagles Giants game. What was it, week 17 or 18? And homie went in with a random T-shirt and a random hat, not even a Giants, anything on, and they still gave him shit because he wasn't wearing Eagles attire.
Yeah, if you're not wearing Eagles stuff, like you're
not. Guy can't even enjoy the football game. He's got to be one way or the other. So it's rough.
Home field advantage.
Significantly, yes. Yeah. Significantly.
I don't think people realize that too. Like, I know we have a bad rep, but it's a huge advantage.
Oh, we'll say this to the kid's point. What was it, number 8 from the Rams that said all those things about the Eagles fan? Yes, dude, I'm his number 1 fan. You know how much guts it takes to say something like that and then go out and perform like he did? The dude balled out. He played great.
He did great. It was fun to see him try to take down Saquon. That was cute.
Yeah, good luck, right? Good luck. But, you know, it takes some guts to say something like that and then show up and you know, walk around like he did and play like he did, especially for a rookie. My hat's off to that dude. 100%.
Oh, for sure. Danny?
What a question for you. If you could take one player out of Giants history to be on your team today, to change the whole atmosphere, who would it be?
It's got to be one guy. And I have him in my mind. I need to hear this.
Oh, yeah, dude. A couple come to mind, but there's only one answer, and that's LT.
Thank you.
It's LT. It's LT. The guy was a freak, and I'm sure that if he still laced those cleats up, people wouldn't want to see him in the hole. Like, that dude broke legs. That dude changed the game. The linebacker position was played. So give me that guy all day long. All day long.
He retired people in their prime.
Gosh. Yeah, crazy. You know, it's like you got Ray Lewis, he was kind of crazy too, but LT was even more so than that. Like, a lot of people don't realize how amazing LT was in his time, but the face of linebackers and crazy, you know, tough linebackers is Ray Lewis, but the original is LT. I'm sorry, it has to be LT.
Absolutely.
It's a good question though. I appreciate that question.
Yep. Danny and I had the same answer for ours because he's a Packers fan. I'm a Eagles fan. It's a no-brainer.
For you, it's got to be. Let's see. Let me see if I can get these right. For a Packers fan, it's got to be Brett Favre. Yeah. No,
I mean, I like Brett Favre, but I'm more of a defense guy. I want somebody on the defense where I'm going to change the whole defense. I'm going Reggie White. Give me Reggie White on that end.
Of course.
But if I'm going offense, I think I want Brett Favre. I don't care if a quarterback throws an interception, as long as you're winning games. You can throw 40 interceptions a game, but you come out with the W, get it done.
Great. That's hard. It's hard to argue that. That's hard to argue
for me.
How about you, Brent? Who'd you go with?
No one cared what Brent says.
Reggie White. I actually would. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. Like, we both had the same and stuff. And yeah, and he busted out. No, I said it first. So I'm like, okay, if I can't have Reggie White because you took him, I would probably want to see Dawkins out there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
I just need somebody to bring me.
Here's the problem with Dawkins, though. He wouldn't be able to do any of the things he did in this era.
Not in LT.
You're right. So if we're talking, you know, real football before they turned into flag football and patty cake, then yes, those two are significantly head over heels.
Oh gosh, we need to have you on more because we can have fun discussions about that, right, Danny?
Oh yeah, there'd be flags every play if LT and Dawkins played.
I think every play that Dawkins does would be called spearing at this point. So I'm pretty sure he made a living off of that, leaving his feet and just diving with that head straight forward.
Dawkins and LT wouldn't make it through the first half of their first game before they're kicked out. That's just the way it would go.
Before kickoff, if we were playing the Chiefs, just go. We know. We both know it's going to go down. Don't even bother. Don't you touch Mahomes.
It's too much. Don't get me started on that whole thing with Mahomes and you know how you can't even look at him before there's a flag. It's just too much. And I like Mahomes. I love Andy Reid. I think the Chiefs are great, but it's getting hard to watch. You know, it's like, come on, dude. If you want to have a conversation about that, in my opinion, if you're a quarterback and you're leaving the line of scrimmage and you're running, you should not be able to slide. You should not. Don't slide.
And my quarterback does it. I don't ban the slide. No, you want to leave. You want to pass that line of scrimmage. Okay,
you're a runner.
Bounds. Put your shoulder. You're a football player, aren't you? So
You're a
show us
football player.
player.
100%. And I think that eliminates all of it. These guys would not take off running if they don't want to get hit, so they won't run. It eliminates those stupid flags when the defenders are trying to avoid them when they slide last minute. It eliminates all of that. I'm sorry, but you don't see Josh Allen taking a dive right before he gets to the, you don't see that. I don't agree with it. It's too much.
So do you believe the NFL has a script? I wouldn't say script, but you believe there's a certain favoritism. Let's go with that word, favoritism towards teams.
I've thought about that a lot. I don't know that I agree that there's a script. I think that would be insane for something like that to actually unfold, through the course of 6 months. Can you imagine that? That's a lot, right? But do I think there's specific and certain matchups that the NFL would rather see in the Super Bowl, and specific players and coaches and storylines that they want to drive? 100%. 100%. To be fair, no one wants to see the Commanders in the Super Bowl.
See, now I think the opposite. I think they want to see Daniels in there. They want to see a rookie quarterback. That's where I'm afraid. Where I'm like, oh my gosh, like they just talk about this guy.
Yeah, but look at it this way. I'm already painting this. I'm already drawing the storyline. Look at it this way. Andy Reid going for his, what is it, three-peat, right? Going up against who? Against who? The Eagles, who he coached and took to the NFC Championship game. How many years in a row? 5 years, whatever it was. 4, okay, right? Going up against Mahomes, who's the face of the NFL, against Saquon, who all of a sudden is probably right underneath him, right? You got Mahomes, you got Saquon in that second tier, maybe slightly
more likable. Yes,
the storylines are unbelievable there. Now you flip it, and you got the Bills and the Commanders. Is that really super intriguing? Are there a lot of storylines there? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so.
What about the Bills in general? The 4 years in a row that they made it, can't seem to get past the hump of Mahomes, who are going for their three-peat and stuff. I mean, they're a pretty, again, that fan base is pretty impressive considering what they've been through. And so
Totally.
They might be. I think the Eagles for me are the better team coming out of the NFC. I think they are, and that's not just me being a homer. That's just they just are. So I would rather see them in the Super Bowl, regardless. If you're a football fan, you would rather want to see a team like that.
Totally.
I mean, I would love to play the Bills. I think it'd be a better matchup. But I just don't see them. I don't see them going in and the NFL letting them beat the Chiefs there.
That's too much. Think about the views, the fans, the people, the attendance, all these things that you just drive for the opportunity for a three-peat. Like just that opportunity. If the Bills game and the Chiefs game is close, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a flag here and there that influences the end of the game. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's scripted. I'm not saying any of that stuff. But if it's a close game, there's agendas probably that, the NFL would rather see. And just like you said, I mean, who doesn't want to see Mahomes against, the Eagles again? Who doesn't want to see them,
Danny doesn't. No, I'd rather not.
I want to see Taylor Swift. I don't want to see Travis Kelce. I'm good.
I'm 100% on your side. I'm over that. But for the 25 billion viewers who don't care about football and just are turning on to see Taylor Swift, maybe, right? The NFL takes that into account, I'm sure of it.
Well, that comes to my next question. Would you rather have a Patrick Mahomes portrait of his face on your back, or an Eagles on tramp stamp on your lower back?
Danny, I'd rather have Patrick Mahomes' face tattooed on my forehead before I get anything Eagles in my body.
That is such a lie.
The hate is real.
That's real. That's real.
Then at an event, because Telmo does bodybuilding, guys. If I could see him turn around to show that back, and there's the nice Eagles tramp. with the barbed wire. I'm just saying it requires Telmo to put on some sort of like temporary tap back there.
No, thanks. I can't imagine. That's the living nightmare. A question, though. Solid question. No, man. Look, I don't just not like the Eagles. I absolutely despise them. It's in my being. It's at my core. I just can't do it. I physically can't do it. I'll tell you this. Me and my sons were watching the Eagles game on Sunday, and
Rooting against them, of course.
And we haven't been that loud watching a game all season, rooting for them to lose. That's how pathetic our season has been,
Dude, I thought the Rams had it there for a minute, but then
everyone. That's why I let me out the loudest that season.
Yeah, that snow came down, and the ball got slippery, and the turnovers happened. I'm like, ooh.
Well, I think where they slipped up is they tried to run the ball a little bit in the second half because of the snow. They should have never tried to run the ball. That's just not who they are. They should have come out and thrown it just like they have been. Puka and Cup, and I mean Puka made that crazy catch. Like
that.
You can't tell me the
Isaiah Rodgers too.
Insane. You can't tell me the conditions for those throws were any different than they were in the third quarter. They should have been throwing the ball.
But another thing too, what scared me about that game was the Eagles created the mistakes that the Ravens made. The fumbles and so on. That was just hustle. That's great. Jalen Carter, holy freaking crap. Like, that's great.
Yeah. Right.
The Eagles almost lost because we made mistakes. It wasn't necessarily anything that the Rams did, okay? Taking that safety, running the ball, or throwing the ball on second down with 4 minutes left. This is a team it's not just, what was Jalen thinking, but it's like, why would you even give him that option? Just run the ball. Like, guy who's crazy, just run the ball.
You got Saquon, who had rushed for 350 yards in the first half, right? Some stupid amount. What?
Yeah.
Why would you even think about rolling out on second down? And not only that, but if I remember correctly, he had been hurt earlier in the game, and they weren't sure if he could actually run the ball. Yet here you are, you put him on an island to make a decision to get hit. It was the dumbest. Like, that could have cost your season right there.
100%.
It really did.
There's so many things that could go wrong, and I think Shannon Sharp said he's like, no, they're not going to put the ball in it. Like, it's not just because of Hurts. He's a good quarterback. I think so. Okay, we could bring Marnie on, and she'll give you a whole I don't know if you met my wife Marnie at all. Tell her if you remember. She's crazy. She's a huge Patriot fan, so she hates you. And so the thing is like, she hates Jalen Hurts more because she just hates. Daniel tell you she'll go off. And so I almost want to call her right now. But the thing is that for me, it's just like, I think Shannon Sharp said, is like, there's so many things that can go wrong by throwing the ball. There's so many things that can go wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
So to have like Saquon on the backfield, very few things can go wrong. It's not impossible, but very few things. So you just give it to him. As long as you give it to him, recipe. So
you have to give it to Saquon. I'm sorry, you have to give it to him. You didn't pay him all this money. You didn't bring him in behind that line to have your quarterback risk a potential turnover on a crucial play like that, especially when he's been hurt, especially when the conditions are what they were, especially when the Rams knew that they had to get it stopped, right? There was just so much that went against that play call. And I'm 100% with catching defenses off guard. But if they were going to do something like that, it should have been first down, not second down. It should have been first.
Well, plus, it's like, this isn't one of those, like, we're playing chess, kind of thing. No, play some checkers, man. You run that guy, okay? It's not very difficult. They haven't stopped them all day. You don't have to overthink this. This is not that complicated.
And let's be honest, what were the chances of the Rams stopping Saquon from getting 10 yards 3 downs in a row or 4 downs in a row? Very minimal. Very, very minimal. So the fact that it gave them a chance, it gave them a chance.
Wasn't there a stat on that game where it's like Saquon doesn't get touched until like 2.2 yards down the field? So you do the math, that's literally 10 yards every 4 plays.
But dude, 2.2 yards, and he falls forward for 2 yards. That's half the distance right there. That's 5 yards.
And that's before he even gets touched. He just
Right.
running 2 yards, and then someone's like, "Oh, there he is. Let's get him."
They're doing a run play?
Yeah.
The ball?
Meanwhile, Josh Jacobs gets the ball in the backfield. He's already got 6 guys on him. I'm like, what are we doing? Like,
That's wild. That's wild.
Oh man.
Brett, do you think the Commanders, and I don't think they did anything differently this week against the Lions than they have been all season, right? Like their offense. You think that they do something different against the Eagles this week, or they come out and just, hey, here's the zone read option that we're going to be running that we've been doing the whole year. Try and stop it. For some reason, the Lions couldn't stop it, which blew my mind. I couldn't understand it.
Well, their defense is so just depleted. Like you tell me that they're going to do the same thing with Hutchinson back there and so on. Like, no, they're not. Like they were missing some key players, linebackers, etc. So that affected them more than I think.
I'll agree with that to an extent, but I also feel like how many times did we watch on 3rd and long where they didn't contain the edges? They played this weird zone or this weird man instead of zone. When you're in a zone, nobody can get outside of you. So make them go inside, and then you don't have to worry about them breaking that long run. And then that key play where they ran double slants, everybody knew that was coming, and they couldn't stop it. Everybody knew that was coming. Right? It just there was so many of those things that the offense is so predictable, yet the Lions beat themselves. They really did. So I'm curious how that's going to go against the Eagles.
Yeah, they took the Lions game, which is very similar, I think, honestly. If you ask me, they're not dissimilar. I know that they pass the ball more, they're play action rather than RPO. I hate RPO, and I prefer play action. But I think, first of all, the Eagles secondary is much more talented, and stuff. And our, we're just more talented defense. We're a better defense. So I would assume that that's not going to work as well. They'll find some success. But in all honesty, I think that they'll stick to their game plan. The most annoying part of their game plan is 4th down. 4th down, that drives me nuts. And that's where they kind of took it to the Lions. Because the Lions are the other team that does a lot of, 4th down plays instead of taking points and so on. And I think it eventually did them in. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the case this time, where it's like all these brazen 4th down plays and so on. No more. Like,
here's the thing with those 4th down plays is when you're the Commanders, no one expected you to be in this position. No one expected you to be a win away from the Super Bowl. They are playing with house money. Yeah. So they're going to go for it on 4th down every chance they get. And they should. And they should. It's one of the reasons they beat the Lions. So you can expect that to be the case. If it's close, they're going to go for it. They have
every
nothing to lose.
We do it with the tush push, right? We do it every time. It's 4th and 2. I can get that. Like, we're going to do that. They can get it with their quarterback. I honestly think, for me, what it comes down to in this game, you want to beat a team like that. You want to beat it like, I think I talked to Danny about this. You want to beat Washington. We're bigger. We're more physical. Punch them in the mouth and remind them who they are and stuff. And that you can play with house money all you want. Eventually, you're going to have to cash in. It's not going to happen in this game they can't match our physicality. I don't believe that they.
It's really simple to me. Run the ball, and you'll win. That's really it. Don't get cute. Don't let him throw it for 30, 20 times. Give it to Saquon. Let that offensive line do what they need to do. Throw in some play action, maybe some rollouts here and there, and you'll win comfortably. Like, really, that should be the formula.
That whole trap of, you can't throw the ball. You can't, you guys are a running team. Hell yeah, we are. We're running right down your throats. Go for it.
Why wouldn't you be? You know how they do the PFF rankings when they're introducing the players? And I was watching the Eagles, and they were doing their linemen. What was it? 3 or 4 of the 5 of their linemen were in the top 5. Something stupid like that.
Pros.
Yeah, and then the other 2 are like top 10, top 12. Come on.
That's how you know it's scripted, the NFL.
Danny, I have a question for you, and this isn't related to anything that we've been talking about, but what are your feelings on Mark Andrews' drop pass at the end of the game there?
His bank account.
For me, shit. I watched a video on Instagram where the Ravens go for that on 2-point conversion. That's their number 1 2-point conversion play. And on all 4 of those tries, Mark Andrews drops the ball.
No
On
way.
all four. Yeah, I'll send it to Brenton. He can probably share with you. But on 4 of those tries, every single one hit his hand and dropped it. So I think at the end of the game, when Lamar Jackson was talking, I sent the video to Brent, but he's just talking. He's like, "I'm so over this, dude. Like, just hold on to the ball."
Catch the ball. Yeah.
But for me,
One of those lip reading like AI things that they did. It's like, what
dude,
were you
But
really saying?
I heard someone say the ball wasn't on target, dude. It hit his hands. When I played
no.
in junior high, they say if it hits your hands, it's catchable. Okay,
Yeah.
this dude's in the NFL. I don't care how many. I've seen him catch way more difficult passes than that. So
In that drive, even.
dude, I
Yeah.
think if that game's on Mark Andrews. I don't care what people say. Like, oh, it's a team game. No, that was on Mark Andrews.
But when you bring that data up and you say, 4 tries, he's dropped it every time, at what point is it the coach's fault for putting him in that position, knowing he's screwed that up?
Dude, if I was a coach, I'd grab his helmet. Like, listen, dumbass, how hard is this? You got massive hands. We throw the ball, you grab it. That's it. All I need. That's it. But
I feel
didn't
for the guy, man.
understand what you're saying. The coach is like,
New
Yeah.
England, he's as dumb as rocks.
yeah,
That's tough. That's a tough way to lose the game. If I remember correctly, their first game, they lost because the tight end stepped out by like an inch in week 1. And then they lost the playoff game because their other tight end couldn't hold on to the ball. So I understand Lamar's point. I get it.
it's
What
funny.
else can the guy do?
My phone just notified me. Andrew's gutted about drop. Ravens tight end posts his Instagram first comments. Funny we're talking about it. Like,
I feel for the guy, man. That's hard. That's hard. He's gonna have to live with that till September, like that's or his whole life. Who knows? That's hard.
life.
That's hard.
Let me see what he
Oh,
says.
man. What could have been? I think, but I mean, that's the question. All teams, all those three teams that play each other, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs, because we all knew Houston wasn't going to pull that off and stuff. The NFL wouldn't allow it, and it really wasn't going to happen.
No way.
And so, the question is, who would you rather see play the Chiefs? Would you rather see the Bills, or would you rather have seen the Ravens?
Good question. I think first of all, Andrews catches that pass. The game is tied, right? But
Yeah,
people
God,
forget. People forget there was still time left on the clock. So, it wouldn't have taken the Bills offense but 30, 40 seconds to get in field goal range with a couple of timeouts. So there's no guarantee that would have been, a win for the Ravens. To answer your question, I got to say it's the Bills for sure. It's got to be the Bills. I like the Ravens. I like Jackson. I like their coach. But I just feel like, how sometimes you feel like you got to pay your dues in specific things sometimes? I feel like the Bills have paid their dues in those conference championship games. And now it's their time to go have a shot at beating these guys. Because if I remember correctly, it's 2 years or 3 years in a row that they couldn't get past this round. And then the year before that, they lost to the Chiefs as well in that crazy playoff game where it went to overtime and he didn't even get a chance to get the ball or something like that, right? They changed the rule for that. So I feel like the Bills have put their time in. They've suffered quite a bit, right? So I think the Ravens will get their shot at some point, but rightfully so, the Bills Chiefs is who should be playing this weekend.
There you go. Well, so one more kind of follow-up to that. I don't know if you have a question, Danny, but I'm going to throw this in there. Where do the Bengals stack up in all that?
Oh, man, this goes back
for MVP, by the way.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier about a quarterback and how good how much that changes your whole franchise, right? Joe Cool. Is that what they call him? Joe Burrow.
Cool, Joe Shiesty.
Whatever. The dude is a beast. I'm sorry. The man is. If I could pick a quarterback and I couldn't have maybe, I don't know, maybe if I couldn't have Josh Allen, he might be my first pick. He's legit. He's legit. And so you give me that guy, you're going to have a chance to win with a shitty offense, with a shitty defense. He's going to give you a chance every year because he's that good. So he's the man. Give him a little help.
But see, the Bengals, in my opinion, are the exact opposite of Chiefs. Like, that's why I don't really hold the Chiefs or the Vikings. I didn't really ever consider them like a legitimate team. Yeah, they beat us twice. That's okay, but that was a different thing. But I don't, because they're barely winning. They're winning I think they won 7 games by 1 point or less. And the Bengals
Yes.
are just the opposite. They lost 7 games by 1 point or less. So you flip that script, dude, they're 14-2 going to the playoffs. For
That's
me,
a great point.
they're a scary team. And I think the Chiefs knew that. So they're like, hey, let's just lose this game. Who cares? Let's just sit on the sideline, let that team win.
No one wanted to see the Bengals in the playoffs. No, nobody wanted to see
And that I call BS on Kelsey being like, we'll play them in the Walmart parking lot. I was like, the hell you will. No,
Of course he's going to say that. Yeah, of course he's going to say that. I feel like you're right. And when you look at the Chiefs, here's my only concern from them, essentially, with the whole, agendas and whatever. They've won all these games by 1 point, 3 points, these tight games. At what point do they lose one of those games? It can't run the table on these close games.
Well, they can't. They've won 15 or more consecutive games where it was like final possession games. 15 straight.
Do you realize how retarded that is?
Exactly.
That doesn't happen.
I'll tell you how impossible that should be.
That's what I'm saying. That's just no way. It's like a baseball player, right? When they're struggling and their batting average is really weak, but they're a 300 hitter, what happens at the end of the year? They're a 300 hitter. It's just average. They end up being a 300 hitter. When you look at these games and they're winning all these games, it feels weird. It feels weird that they're winning all these tight games, right? It's like you should lose 1 or 2 or 3 of these.
What they need, they get. They need a blocked field goal, they get it. No one even blocks the guy. He goes right through there like, well, you guys forgot to block me? I'm here. Like, dude, how is this even happening?
Yep.
It's hard to watch.
They get it. They need to get into field goal range. They need a penalty. They get it. But, here's the thing. And David, Marnie brought up this point. I have to give her a shout out because this is actually a really good point. There are teams, you believe the Chiefs, for example, that play to get flags. There's teams that play to get flags that this play is designed, or this whole thing is designed to try to get a flag rather than playing the game to get the first down, to get those things, and so on. It just gives you this vibe that teams these days are trying to get a call rather than trying to, get the yards.
And she's absolutely right. I mean, to her point, what did Mahomes do when he was over there on the sideline during one of those plays? He just dove and looked at the ref, and the dude didn't even touch him. He wasn't even close to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing for a flag. I hate that. There's so much anger when I see that, because that's not football, right? That just feels wrong to me. It's like, it goes against all the reasons why we started watching football when they were tough, right? The quarterbacks, right? There's this image that always goes in my head with what's his name, Matthew Stafford, when the Lions were so awful and he kept getting his ass beat back there. And what happened? He had broken ribs. And what did the offensive line do? They picked him up and they dragged him to the huddle. How many flags did that guy get? Nothing, none, right? It goes against what I have grown up watching. And so when you have these close games and somehow the freaking Chiefs end up winning every single one, it's hard to overlook.
And that's what I'm saying. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm going to tell him, hey, if you're going to be pussyfooting around out there playing tippy-tap-toe by the sideline, I want you to lay him out because you're going to get the flag either way. So hit him as hard as you can. You're going to get that flag. Just hit him. So if the ref calls a flag, great, because he's going to put his foot on that sideline. Then they're going to tap him, and he's going to fake fall, and he's like, 15 yards. You're going to give me the penalty? You're going to feel the penalty.
And that's just it. And that's just it. I agree with that wholeheartedly, because a lot of these flags, what was the one penalty that in the game where he slid and the 2 defenders hit themselves and didn't hit him and he got and they got a flag?
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're kidding me.
Intentional personal foul.
Hit him.
Yeah.
Hit him. Make if you're gonna get a penalty kick, or penalty flag, you make sure that it's earned. I'm sorry. I agree.
I would bring the bounty.
That's a defensive-minded player right there.
I'm bringing the bounty back. Every time you hit him, I'll give you 10 grand.
Brings a bounty back. You heard it here first. So, the play that pissed us all off wasn't necessarily that, because that just looked like a blooper reel, right? Like the 2 guys hit each other and he still gets a flag because he's Mahomes. But slowing down before you go out of bounds so that you can take a hit and stuff right there and get that flag, that's the problem right there. That's where everyone's like, whoa. Even Troy Aikman, quarterback and stuff, he was like, oh, no, 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 no. Hold on a second. This isn't football.
Like, I actually really like
Troy Aikman
listening to
got hit
Troy.
by Lawrence Taylor, and he's like, what was that? Like, that wasn't even a hit.
Right. And Troy is I will take his expertise in the matter all day long because he's usually dead on in his commentary around those flags. And he was appalled. Really? This guy's going out of bounds and he's diving? Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And why is it always Mahomes that's doing it? You know what I'm saying? Like it's always him.
Look, and I know you're not a fan of the Eagles. A couple of those kind of plays happened in the Eagles-Rams game. No flags whatsoever. And the thing is, I'm okay with the no flags. Like, I'm okay with them. Like, it's football, right? What I'm not okay with is kind of what you're mentioning, the inconsistency. So Mahomes is getting that call, but my boy Jalen's not getting that call. Now I have a problem. If that's what you got to do for, because even Josh Allen was getting some of those calls. You see him get down, throw those arms, do a little flop, things like that, getting those calls. My boy Jalen doesn't get that and stuff, I'm just like, ugh. Again, I have a problem with inconsistency.
It's a valid point, and it definitely should be both ways. You just can't do it for Mahomes only because it looks so sketchy when it's just that way, right? If they were doing it for both sides, then it would be like that's a different conversation, right? It's the refs are struggling and this is soft, right? But when it's just one-sided and it affects the game dramatically, man, it's hard to watch. And again, I like Mahomes. I like Andy Reid. I've been wanting them to win, but it's gotten to the point where it's hard. It's hard to pull for them,
You don't feel like they're earning it per se. That it's being kind of given to them a bit.
It feels that way. It feels that way. In a lot of ways. Yeah, man. It just, I mean, it's that one play where he's like falling backwards or forwards and he slings the ball in the end zone for a touchdown as he's falling. Just do that. Just play football like that. Like you're good enough. You're unbelievable. You don't do the other stuff. It makes it hard. It makes it hard to root for the guy like that,
But that's what I think people liked about Patrick Mahomes, because when he was a rookie, he was making crazy throws, and he was making these, like, dude, he's
doing that.
Yeah, he's earning these wins. Like you're legit.
Mm-hmm.
You now just feel like, hey, the ref's watching. If I do a flop, I'll get that 15 yards. But I even think like offensive line, when they do that, when they're pulling people off and someone pushes them, and all of a sudden the sheer force of their hands threw him back 10 yards and they're rolling. I'm like, what was that? Like you just went up against him on the defensive line. He's
some big boy, man.
6'7", 380. You just hit heads and you didn't even flinch. Now you're standing, he pushes you with your fingers, and you're rolling back 10 yards.
It's so true. It's so true.
My problem is he's always acts injured. The last 3 games of the season, he gets some injury, some ankle injury and stuff. So, every game that's important, he comes up limping a little bit, then goes in the locker room back and has this MVP kind of game. You're like, I hate you so much.
Well, that's going to be the same thing this week, right? First quarter, write it down right now. He's going to get out there. Somebody's going to roll over his ankle and he's going to like hobble. And then they're going to draw it up. Oh, we don't know if he's healthy. We don't know if he's this and he's that. They'll end up winning. And the whole story is he's got a sprained ankle. He's got a broken ankle. And he'll come out in the Super Bowl and be just fine.
And that'll also be the reason that they lose, right? Like, oh, well, he wasn't 100%.
Yeah,
so if
exactly.
They have a great story if he wins. They have an excuse if he loses. So
exactly, yeah, it's like, dude, just play football, man. You're one of the best to ever do it. Why do you need to slide like that? Like, just play ball. You're good enough. Everybody knows.
We get it.
Yeah, we all get it. Just you don't need to fake it. Just be who you are.
I'm with you on that. I agree. So. Yeah, no. Thanks a lot, Telmo. Seriously, it's been awesome. We really appreciate you coming on. So we hit our hour mark. I don't know if you have more time. You got things to do. I don't know if Danny has a life. I don't think he does. You have a life, Danny? Yeah.
I'm good. I don't have anything for a little while. So do you have anything else,
Danny?
Yeah. Who you got this weekend, Telmo? Who you got? Who's winning? Scores.
Let's get your picks in.
Get your pick.
Okay. You said scores?
Scores. Yep.
I'm gonna say Bills over Chiefs. Now, I'm telling you what I want to see. What I think will happen is different. What
Thanks
I
from
want to see,
the heart.
yeah. What I want to see, Bills over Chiefs, 30-27. That's my call. It'll be a shootout. Um, Eagles Commanders. I'm gonna say Eagles over the Commanders, 17-14.
That
Tight
taste coming
games.
in your mouth.
Man,
Tight games. It hurts. It hurts. But I think we'll see a lot of defense in that Eagles game. Um, I think we'll see a lot of defense. Not so much in the other game, but we'll see a lot of defense in that first game.
I got
What
I
do you
got
guys
Bills.
think?
I got Bills, dude. There's not one part of me that wants to see Chiefs go to the three-peat. Not one part. So I'm going Bills 28, Chiefs 21. I'll go Eagles and Commanders. If Jalen doesn't hold the ball as long as he did last week, I think they'll win. But I'm going with Eagles. Let's go 13.
Okay.
Well, let's see here. I'm going with the Bills over. I'm wanting the Bills to win over the Chiefs. All right, I'm going to say 27-17. I think they get exposed for their offense gets exposed. I think the Bills defense finally shows up. And I'd like to see that actually. And that's asking a lot at Arrowhead too. And I know the weather's gonna be freaking cold, but that doesn't affect the Bills as much. So you could tell it affected Houston. So
From
yeah,
Buffalo. Yeah.
what's that?
I said they play in Buffalo. It's the same shit. They're fine.
Yeah. So and then obviously I'm gonna go with the Eagles over Washington. And I'm actually gonna hope for a blowout here. I'm gonna go 28-10. And
Okay.
Saquon has 240 yards on the ground.
200.
Well, if he has 230 yards, they're gonna win by way more than that, in my opinion.
I thought
You
were
would
gonna
think so, but yet it is the Eagles, and so for some reason we kind of tend to, take the foot off the pedal a little bit for some odd reason. So
Yeah.
there are times where we should smash a team and just put the foot on their throat, and then Saquon decides to slide.
I thought you were gonna say if he has 230 yards, I'll get a Saquon tattoo on my back. I'm like, it's gonna happen. But I did forget, Brent. I'm take that back. I think Eagles have 20-13. Elliott's gonna miss at least one PAT.
Fair.
Oh, gosh. You had to do that to me. Shoot, I didn't even factor that into it. I figured maybe we'll get a 2-point conversion that'll catch us up or something to where we should be.
You just hope that those games aren't close and it comes down to a field goal, because I'm sorry, but dude, the kicker plays a huge role in these games, like massive roles in these games.
You should
Massive
not
role.
be hitting 40-yard field goals pretty much no problem and missing PATs to the
You're
point
right.
where you have to literally because a lot of people were giving Sirianni a lot of crap this year because we kept going for twos. Obviously, he saw something early on with Elliott that wasn't right. I don't know, because kicking, and I can say from some experience, kicking is mostly mental. It's
Sure.
not like he doesn't have the leg to hit these. He has that. We know that. It is something mental going on. Maybe there is an injury that we don't know of and stuff like, he pulled a groin muscle and he's not telling people. But I don't know what it is. It really comes down to, he saw something and he made decisions, and we gave him crap for it. I gave him crap for it, but now that I look at him, like, shoot, I can't blame him. I think I'd be going for two often as well, especially against the Jaguars.
But maybe Sirianni did that to him. Maybe he put that doubt in his head. Maybe they're like, "Hey, we're going for two just to go for two," and he's like, "Well, I want to kick it though, coach."
Yeah.
He's got that doubt in his head now.
No, you might be right. I don't know.
You're right though. The kicking thing is so mental. I mean, look at Justin Tucker, right? The guy was automatic for who knows how long, best kicker in the world forever, and then this year he struggled, and he missed one, and then he missed another, and then all of a sudden, like, this guy can't kick anymore. Yes, he can. He can kick just fine, but it's in his head, and once a kicker gets there, it's really hard to get out of that. Like, it really is.
Well, it's hard as a fan to kind of stick with them, right? Like, I mean, we don't have a Tucker. Elliott is not to that level, but he's been very consistent for us. And I don't know any Giants fan that doesn't know his 63-yarder that we kicked, that year that we went to the Super Bowl. Like, the dude's been clutch, right? I was thinking 62. But, like, like, he's a good kicker. But, yeah. I don't, and it's one of those things where he's done. He's peaked, and that's over. I don't know, man. Like, I wouldn't move on from him.
It's hard, though, because you're so past making a decision on a kicker at this point. You got to just ride with it. It's like, hey, he hits it, you're in. This is who you got.
Can we borrow McManus?
My theory about Justin Tucker, though, this has been for a couple weeks, is he shares a locker next to Derrick Henry, and he just lost his man security. He was just like, what is this human being next to me? Like,
yeah, he's a beast.
I am not a man next to this guy. All of security.
His insecurities are
the only thing that makes
is Andrews.
He was a great kicker before he got there. Then all of a sudden he got there. I'm like, dude, he got to have locker like right next to his, and it's just like,
no kidding.
You know what it probably was? He probably just stopped kicking. He stopped practicing. He's like, I mean, we're not going to kick, are we? Like, he's just going to keep running it for 2-point conversions. That's what we do. You're doing that with Madden and stuff. Because that's what they're doing in the clubhouse. They're playing Madden, and they're like, why would we kick it? I'm just going to keep running 2-point conversions with Henry.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have to play.
Yeah, 4th and 2 from the 40, from the 30, from the 20. We're going for it all day.
Every time. That's a player that, was a little disappointing in that Bills game, and not because he wasn't getting it done per se, but because they didn't give him enough touches. And I don't think they were far enough behind that they could not give him, because he's a home run hitter kind of player, like a Saquon. Like, this guy can run and he can break free, and it changes momentum when he does, when he trucks a guy. You got to give him more than 16 touches. He's got to hit the 20s plus. Otherwise, you're not winning.
It's all momentum, right? It's all momentum. Who has the momentum? Who can establish what they want to do quicker, right? And then who has to chase? If you have to chase and you're not performing your game plan, all of a sudden things feel weird, right? Like it's different.
Right.
And so if you can't, for example, if the Eagles come out and they're behind 14-0 all of a sudden, do you really think that they're going to stick to running the ball? Probably not. They should. They should.
But that's not the NFL. Yeah, that's not the.
So he's going to start.
What Commanders did to the Lions.
Right. We're going to chase points. We have to do this. We have to go for it on 4th and 3 because we're behind 14 points. What if they score another field goal? Now we're down 3 possessions. No. We got to go for it, right? They go for it and don't get it. Now you're screwed. Now you're really chasing, right? So there's not that like level of conservativeness anymore. It's you get behind, you all of a sudden are struggling to follow your game plan and things go out the window. And that's, in my opinion, that's why the Rams lost, man. They should have just thrown the ball, what they've been doing the whole year. Just throw the ball.
Because you weren't that far behind, regardless. Like I had a Rams fan, a buddy who's a Rams fan, and he texted me after we got up 2 scores, and he's just like, "Oh, that it's over. Congratulations." I'm like, "It ain't over, dude." Like no.
Yeah, and why did they come back? Because they were forced to throw the ball, right? They were forced to throw the ball. They had no choice. They were behind 14 points. We got to chase points. We're going to run a little bit of up tempo, so they start throwing. That's what they've been doing all year. That's how they were successful. Man, the game would have been so different if that's what they did the whole time. It would have been different.
Yeah, it's that simple. When they say it's a game of inches, it's also a game of decisions, and that's what it came down to is just a few decisions. Because again, even on our part, a few decisions almost killed us.
Yes, the whole game, man. You guys they played great on offense. One play, one decision could have really. It's something you would have never forgotten. I mean, we're talking about it, and you won, right? If you lose. Yeah.
Which is the most frustrating thing about the Eagles is the fact that we talk about them in a stressful fashion, not like, we won, we're awesome. We're a good team. But it's one of those things where you look at the team, you're like, someone's like, oh man, like Saquon had 200, what did he have in that game? 235 yards rushing, whatever it is. And we still barely won. That's the problem I have.
Yeah, you're right. It's The fact that it was as close as it was with as many rushing yards as he had is alarming. It definitely is, right? And then the flip side goes back to kind of what we were just talking about is, man, what happens if they're chasing points? That's where I worry for the Eagles. If somehow the Commanders get a 10-point lead, a 14-point lead, 17-point lead, who knows, right? They get up. Are they going to abandon the running game? Are they going to let him start throwing it around 20, 30 times because they start to panic a little bit? They shouldn't, but they might. They might.
Here's the thing, though. Are you really that worried when you have, fine, I can just throw it to Saquon the flat, let him do his thing. I can give it to Goddard. I have A.J. Brown. I have Devontae Smith. I have a Jahan Dotson and stuff. I have these players. So if me, as an Eagles fan, and I'm going to be an obnoxious one right now, if you're going to take away my run, good luck with that. Okay, with my offensive line. But if you somehow manage to pull off that miracle, now you have to deal with that and stuff. And yeah, the question, can Jalen put it there?
That's the thing. Jalen Hurts held the ball way too long. There's 4 plays where I'm like, you have the ball 6 seconds. Throw it out of bounds or run it. But he just stood back there. I'm like, what are you doing?
There's a lot of things that can factor. That's the thing. I struggle with analysis of Jalen Hurts in that game because it's one of those things where it's he's not Stafford. He doesn't have that kind of arm, that experience and stuff. And so, I don't know what he's going to do when he's injured. He clearly hurt his knee. And, now he's throwing it. It's just, I don't know.
It will be interesting to see what happens if they do get behind because, like I said, the good teams are the ones that end up pushing their agenda, who they are right off the bat, right? The teams that can come in, establish the run, right? Do what they need to do and take control over that momentum generally are the ones that end up winning the games, right? Because the other team all of a sudden has to chase points or they're doing something that they didn't necessarily plan on doing. So the game plan is kind of out of the window, right? I don't know that
it didn't work.
Right. And so I don't know that I see the Eagles, sticking to their game plan if they get behind. They're going to let him throw it. And I don't know if he's good enough to put him on his back, and bring him back if that's the case. And if he does, then great. He deserves it. Good for you. You're on to the Super Bowl. That's really what it comes down to.
Telmo, I do have a question for you, and this is going to bring in Danny's Packers. Okay, what are your thoughts on Jordan Love? Danny has some pretty passionate feelings about this too. And not passionate in the weird way, but passionate as a fan way.
Oh, it's weird.
I would say I watched Jordan Love when he played at Utah State up here, and I was like, this guy's good, but I wasn't blown away by watching him even in college, right? And then he got drafted in the first round, which I was like, it was the first round, right? I was like, what? A kid from Utah State? What are they seeing? Then he sat behind with Rodgers for a year or two, whatever. And then he gets a shot, and I'm like, okay, he's good. He's really good. Do I think he's elite? I don't. But I think he's a very good quarterback. Does he scare me with the ball in his hands with 2 minutes left to bring his team down and beat me? I would rather see him than 10 other quarterbacks in the league right now.
Yeah, he's missing.
I will say this.
When you watch him, you can tell there's something missing. You're like, oh, you can throw the ball. Good job. But when you watch Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, oh, dude, if it comes down to it, this guy is going to put the game in his hands. But you never get
he's going to win it.
Love.
Yes.
Yeah. Jordan Love, you're like, okay, can he make the throw? Sure.
Give you a chance, but I'm not scared of him with the ball in his hands to win the game against me if I'm on defense, right? I'm okay with that. And that's not to say that he can't develop those skills, but a lot of that stuff is just inherited and you have it or you don't. Daniel Jones, for example, amazing talent, could do all these things. Didn't have it. He just didn't have it. Didn't have it. You watch him play, you see the guy can throw it a mile, he can run 100 miles an hour, but when he got back there, it was like, whoa, this guy's missing something. What is he missing?
Exactly.
And it's just the same thing, right? He's not scary. He's not, he doesn't have the it factor. Like when Tom Brady had the ball, when Peyton Manning had the ball, even Eli Manning with the ball in his hands with 2 minutes left, he's going to give you a really good chance. Most guys didn't want to see him, right? Those are the kind of things that I look for in a quarterback driven league especially when you get down into the playoff picture, right? And sometimes you look at like teams versus teams, but really what you should be looking at is quarterback versus quarterback in the rounds. And that's why I think the Eagles will win, because I think Hurts is better than Daniels right now. But it should really be that way, right? It's quarterbacks.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. I think Love, just like you said, lacks that killer thing. You don't see him on the sidelines yelling at his receivers like, catch the ball, do this, you ran the wrong route. It's just go and just do your thing, like kind of just sit down. I don't see Jalen do that much either. But I don't think there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to having that it factor. It's not like you always have to be yelling at somebody to prove you're competitive. But, there are just guys that just have the ability to get a team rolling one way or another.
Totally. And it's really simple, right? Just us having this conversation. Joe Burrow, I don't want to see that guy with the ball in his hands against my team with 2 minutes left. He's going to win. He's going to find a way to win. He's going to win. Matthew Stafford, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to see that guy with the ball in his hands. He'll find a way to win, right?
Yeah.
We know Josh Allen is a beast. I don't want to see that guy with the ball, right? Patrick Mahomes, whatever, right? Well, those are all the guys that you think, okay, I don't want to see that guy. But then you have that kind of second and third tier where you're just like, they're good players. I'm not too scared. I'm not too worried about it.
Like when another team scores and your team needs to win, there's a minute 30 seconds, and Aaron Rodgers had the ball in Green Bay, you're like, oh, you got plenty of time. But then Jordan Love gets the ball, you're like, oh, great. What's he going to do? Try to do a Hail Mary on the first play? Like, just dude.
Right. That's exactly it. Yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers gets the ball with a minute and a half. Eli gets the ball with 60 seconds. They're going to give you a chance, and most of the time they're going to win the game for you. These other guys, it's just kind of like, I'm not too nervous,
Would you be nervous if Jalen Hurts gets the ball with a minute and a half?
No.
If he hands off
that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like, go ahead.
No.
Just hand off.
I wouldn't.
Worry about.
I wouldn't.
Jalen, just the wild card.
So that's the thing. Like, I get asked that question. Like, Marty will ask me that question: would you trade Jalen Hurts for Joe Burrow? And it's like an immediate, abso-freaking-lutely, I would. I love Jalen Hurts. I do have issues with him. I have my fears, my trepidations, all that stuff. Oh my gosh, Joe Burrow. I was like,
can you imagine Joe Burrow behind that offensive line and that running game? That's enough to give you the answer that you need.
We saw it with Tanner McKee. We saw it with him when it's like, oh, this is more of a pocket style quarterback, like a Joe Burrow and stuff. And we saw him dropping dimes to those receivers and just handing the ball off. Like, your job should be so easy. I mean, you would be in the MVP conversation, and all you really do is just dink and dunk and hand the ball off to Saquon. That's what got Goff, in consideration back in the day when he was with the Rams and stuff.
Yes.
Got him an MVP discussion. It's not because he's just a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He is a good quarterback. But, like, holy shnikes, like that team, yeah.
If I could compare him to somebody, it would be like Russell Wilson. You know how Russell Wilson is? He's a good quarterback, and he'll give you a chance, but you're not super scared of him to make the throw to win the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, right? So that's kind of how I feel when I think of Jalen Hurts. It's like, yeah, he's good, but he's got everything around him. The dude has everything around him, so
yeah.
I struggle with
both teams offensively. He has everything around him on defense too. So you're just like, your defense is going to stop the ball. Your offense is going to get it again. Like, you have no worries in the world. All you got to do is this. There you go.
Which is why I'd be okay with trading him and grooming Tanner McKee. Not even pick it. Screw that crap. Tanner McKee, because we got him on the cheap. He's a good player. He has some things he needs to work on. But again, it should make everyone happy. AJ would be happy he gets the ball. Saquon's going to get still another 2,000 yards probably. He might get more touches now. I mean, it just changes. I like play action more than I like RPO. I can't stand RPO. I love a play action style offense, and they are not the same thing. And so
here's my concern with the running quarterback, and I struggle with it because it happens all the time, right? Lamar Jackson is an anomaly. That dude's an anomaly. He really is. The fact that he's been doing what he's doing and developed to be able to throw better he's just a freak. He's in a class on his own with Michael Vick, right? But then you got the other guys that are running quarterbacks. And what comes to mind? RG3, injuries, right? These guys are a knee injury away from being not even on the team anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's where I struggle with the RPO with Jaden Daniels, and even when Daniel Jones was doing it, it's like, dude, you're just not good enough to overcome an injury if it ever happens to still be in the league. Like, and so when you take that out of the equation and you look at the guys that can do that, who are you left with? Burrows, right? Who he doesn't need to run, but he can if he needs to, right? You got Allen, you got Mahomes, right? Like these guys are all pocket guys that can throw first and then do that. So the injury question, the side of it, is where I struggle with this kind of offense.
I'd much rather have a pocket passer.
Yeah.
All day.
Which is, again, even for me, why I'm willing to get rid of Hurts after this year. I don't care what happens, Super Bowl, we win it, whatever. I'm willing to move on from him for a guy like Tanner McKee, because I saw, and yes, it was against the Giants, and stuff, and they weren't 100%, and I get that, like they didn't have a quarterback, blah blah blah. Okay, but he's still, when you look at the eyeball test, right? You're like, I like the way they run the offense with this guy. Like I like this. I miss that kind of football, and so when I see that, I'm like, you mean I got this guy on the cheap, and we have all of our players are there for the next few years? Like, oh, wouldn't I want to go with this guy? Like, this is, that's why I'm not a GM, maybe, because I would make that kind of crazy decision. People are like, what are you thinking? But
what's Jalen Hurts' contract like? Is he making a ton of money? Is he up soon?
No. So it's the opposite of Daniel Jones's, where Daniel Jones is making a lot more up front. His is the more cap friendly one. So you can go now. And you have to be thinking that decision. I know how he's thinking it. He's not afraid to make that. He did it with Carson Wentz and moved on.
Right.
If we don't win the Super Bowl, if we don't win this game, we don't win the Super Bowl, those are the questions where you're just like, this team is too talented. I just need a guy who's going to get the ball to these guys, whether it's handing it off or getting it to these playmakers, and doesn't have to overthink. It's like,
that's why I bring it up, right? Because the formula has been over the last little while, if you can get a quarterback and they're really good, the rookie contract, you can spend all the money on defense, offensive line, and be awesome. But once you have to pay him, what happens? You all of a sudden can't pay, your other stars. You can't have a great offensive. Look at what happened to the Cowboys, right? They had a great offensive line for a long time, and then they had to make a decision on a quarterback. Now homie's making $70 million a year. It's insane. Like you can't, once you have to pay your quarterback that much, it's over. I'm sorry, it really is. You look at Tom Brady.
Tom Brady did not take all that money. I just want a guy who's not going to do that. Like that's going to realize, hey, in order to build this team, I know you want to make money. I get that. At some point, like you've got your millions. What about winning? Does that matter at all? Like, do you have because the Eagles have that kind of team that can win for a long time if we play it right. If you can have a guy willing to restructure, take less and less and less. If you have players who buy in, you
agree.
But that's the question is, I wouldn't call it greed, but it's just kind of like, what's more important, and everyone's different. And I get that, but you can't tell me that you can't feed that whole bull crap line that you used to get back in the day. How am I going to feed my family? Like, you got like two. The rest of us Americans make it somehow. And so
yeah, it's a hard decision that's gonna have to happen at some point on the Eagles side, but it's also, in my opinion, I haven't seen enough to be like, yeah, that's my guy. He's got to get paid, and we need him, right? Like, it's not that kind of scenario. It's not a Joe Burrow like, okay, shit, we got to have that guy, right? Like, it's not the same thing. It's completely opposite.
Jalen Hurts is due $107 million next year. Perfect.
Yeah, see, like that thing, it was good for the front end. The back end is going to start showing up, and you're like, oh crap. I mean, that's the decision for me after seeing what Tanner McKee can do. I mean, and again, I know a lot of Eagles fans would be mad, but dude, you got to start thinking money. You got to start thinking, we got players we got to pay. And I mean, you can pay that quarterback all that you want and turn into another Cowboys, or you could start realizing that, as important as that position is, we're so talented in every other position. We're in a unique position where we're so talented everywhere else that you could probably put a Daniel Jones, don't do it, but you could probably put a Daniel Jones in there and actually be successful and stuff, because you're going to give him an O-line, give him all these things. Look at what the Vikings did with Sam Darnold. I mean,
100%.
This is the same situation, but with better personnel. Although those receivers are ridiculous too over there. But it's the same situation.
Yeah, two things on that. I think Sam Darnold is actually a decent quarterback. He would be awesome if he was the quarterback of the Eagles. I'm just saying.
Oh no, he'd be absolutely fantastic. He does make some rough decisions when you can get to him, but again, you're not getting to him if you're playing against the Eagles. That's not Jalen takes sacks he does that he holds on too long. Yeah, Darnold had done that, but not to the point that Jalen does.
As good as the Vikings have been, that we're talking about the it factor for a quarterback. That's a team I've never been scared of. You know what I'm saying? And Danny, you see these guys all the time, right? It's like, yeah, they're 14-2. I want to play. I want to play them. I think we can beat them, right? Like they just don't scare me. They've never scared me.
They have in the NFL history, they have like the 5th winningest team, but they've never been to a Super Bowl. So when I get to playoffs, you're just like, cool. I don't really care why are you here? You're just like,
yeah, they go 14-2 and lose in the first round every year. It's how it goes.
Is that how weak the NFC North is? These guys aren't just battle tested enough that when they get to the playoffs, it's just it's not.
I'll tell you what, we had the best record in the season, but in the playoffs we were 0-3. I'm like, yeah, we suck. Like, let's just stay out of there. Let's rebuild next year.
You guys had the same playoffs as the Bears did. How does that make you feel?
But that's what I hate. Like, you get to the playoffs and you get out the first round. Now we have the 26th pick, and we're still the youngest team. I hate that. You guys are the youngest team. Cool. What have we accomplished? Like, who cares if we're young? Like, if we're young and winning, we go to the NFC Championship. Oh, great. We got something to look forward to next year. But we can't even get past Jordan Love. And I hate when he runs. I don't want to go off. When he tries to run, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, John Elway, dude, you retired. Stop running. Like, you are not a runner. Just throw the ball. Like, if you run the ball, get Mike Willis in there. He'll run it.
I agree. And it's tough because, you look at the Packers team and they're young. They have a quarterback who he's probably not going to go anywhere. Let's be honest. He's going to be your guy for a while. But the worst place you can be in the NFL, and we said this earlier, is average or barely making the playoffs and knowing you don't have a shot at winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah. You mean example? Yeah. I mean, I like Baker. He's a competitor, but it's like you're just you're almost like a stepping stone towards the season. You're the just those teams that college football teams play to get them warmed up and stuff. These warm up games, in a sense. No disrespect. Every team that makes the playoffs is a good team, but you barely won the NFC South, and you think that you're going to come in and just run the table like.
The Bucks are going to be the exact same next year, and then the next year when they're the same record and barely make the playoffs or barely don't make the playoffs, they'll be the same again. And it's just the way it is, right? It's like I said, I would rather my team either be damn good or be really shitty. People argue with me all the time, but it's like, no, logically, it's the only way you're going to get better. Like, you can't be middle of the pack. You just can't. It's the worst place to be.
The only exception to that is if you are a free agent destination kind of team where people want to go there. And that's my opinion. Like, you can build a team off of free agency. You can do these things, like the Rams. That's how they stay competitive. Like, oh yeah, I'll go play at SoFi. I'll go play for the Rams, like in LA. There are guys who want that and stuff. But if you're a team like, let's say Green Bay, for example, where it's like, I don't want to go to that place. This place is cold as hell. You're going to have to win the draft every time. And yeah, your placement will matter, or you have a dang good GM that can pull some magic, good scout, because, it's tough in some of these places to, who don't have that allure.
Yeah.
But see, the NFL draft, there's only really for first year drafts, there's really only 5 dudes that stand out in the NFL. So pick number 26 or even after 20, they're good, but they're not like elite athletes. Like, you get Jaden Daniels, great example. If there's another quarterback picked at number 26, I guarantee you he's not the same as Jaden Daniels, or even a defensive guy. So for me, it's like, I agree 100% with Telmo, where he's like, dude, either you're going to suck and you want the first 5 picks or one of those, or you're going to do great and go to the next round and work off of free agency. But for me,
Right.
no, dude, I hate. It's like you got the 24th pick. Cool. We got an average guy.
That's,
Awesome.
that's going to be not well. That dude probably is going to be your second string player for whatever you draft, right? Like, there's really only 5 to 10 impactful guys that come into the draft, and they're usually gone in the first 5 to 10 picks. That's just the way it is, right? And then if you're in the playoffs and you're a team like the Eagles, who are super close and are always in the mix, whatever, you're going to be able to bring in a free agent and convince them to come play for you and be an impactful player because you're so close, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying is there's such a disparity. You got to be really good or you got to be really bad. Everything in between is purgatory. It's struggle for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this really quick for you, just something that popped in my mind. If I'm the Giants, I pick up Abdul Carter from Penn State to go with Thibodeau.
Really?
Look, you want to know the recipe to win? You build from the inside out. Corners are diamond fine corners. The Eagles, again, different story. The exception with what they did in getting Quinyon Mitchell and so on. Okay, and Regine. But again, there are free agents. There are guys out there. That is a position that you can find. I just think guys like that. That's what you go for in the top 5. Is you build your line and O line.
The Giants in their prime, when we were really good and competitive, we had a really good offensive line, and we had the sickest defensive line for years. And what did we do every year in the draft? If the best defensive end was still available, that's who we took. Even though we had Strahan and Tuck and JPP, it didn't matter. They just kept adding, and that's why we were so good, because there was never a break. There was always somebody that could come in and get after the quarterback, right? So it was always who the best available player is, not necessarily drafting needs. And that's where, back to the original question, the freaking GMs have struggled to get this right because they're like, oh, we got to have a wide receiver. We got to have a tight end. We got to have a corner. Dude, you need a lot more than that. And that player is not going to come in and all of a sudden address those things, right? Like, as amazing as Malik Neighbors is, we won 3 games. Right? Like, we won 3 games. I
said that, like, if you ask me the Packers needs, they need a veteran receiver. You need to get somebody in there because your guys are young. You need a veteran receiver. Sure, you're not going to – I wouldn't draft a receiver. You draft a receiver, you wasted a pick. You have receivers, you just need to get one from free agency. If you look at a team like yours, I would just build from the inside out. That's just what all good teams really do, is they build from the inside out. That's what I need. Again, not to sound like a homer, but that's what the Eagles have done. They built from the inside out. That D line is ridiculous, and they're draft picks minus Huff. But good grief, it's all draft picks, and you're just like, holy crap, and they're all Georgia. Fine.
What was your Commanders' record last year? 4-12.
Yeah,
something like that. They get a top round guy like in the top 5. The rest of the dudes didn't change who they were. They just got a guy in there that was just a freak athlete and could throw a ball on point.
And they got a new coach. They got a new GM, right? So they changed the whole aura of the team. Sure.
Yep.
But that's what you want, coaches. You start fresh with your quarterback, your guy. You have a new offensive coordinator, new everything. That team started fresh. And I think to your point, look, I think that I like Gene Daniels. I don't hate the guy or anything like that. I don't know him personally. I just think he's RG3 Jr. I've seen this before. I've seen this kind of player. In the NFC East, we have seen guys like him. Why do you think when we played Baltimore in Baltimore that Lamar did not scare us and stuff? We created players like this. We've had the Randall Cunninghams. We've had the Brownie Pease. We've had the Michael Vicks. We've had all this. Well, I'm not concerned about running quarterbacks because I know eventually they're going to get hurt. My quarterback gets hurt. And so it's like, I'm not seeing anything new from him. Yeah, like you said, they're just a surprise. Like, they go 4-on-4 talent all the time. And so, it's just, I think the NFL catches up.
Oh, yeah, 100%. They definitely do. And I'm looking at, the 2 quarterbacks in the draft that everybody thinks that, the Giants should draft. It blows my mind to think that they can really expect one of those 2 kids to come in and make such a big impact. Like, you can't get that wrong. We already did that with Daniel Jones, and it set us back 6 years, right? Like you just can't, if he's not the generational talent, you got to pass and you got to take the best player available outside. You can't get it wrong. It sets you back almost a decade to get it wrong. Like we're living that. The Giants are living that right now, right? And I'm not a huge college football fan, so I can't give you numbers. I don't dive into all that stuff as much. But just from watching them, I don't see anything that blows me away to think, yeah, I got to have that guy.
Right. I said the same thing about Shador Sanders. I talked to Brent about it. Dude, I don't see what the big hype is about this guy. Like, I mean, besides his last name, cool, your dad is Deion Sanders. But besides that, like, you didn't make the playoffs. You're not really impressing anybody. I mean, besides those fans out there, just Sanders fans. But to me, I'm like,
right.
Cam Ward is probably their best. Actually, I like my favorite quarterback in this draft is Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. I think he's probably going to be the best quarterback out of this draft class. Not this year. Probably going to take like 2 or 3 years for him to develop. And then they're going to be like, dude, he's good. He's good. But
yes.
Other than that, I don't see a quarterback. I'm like, I got to trade to get him.
Ideally, if the Giants could take him in the second round, I would love that. I would love that. Honestly, like I watch him and he gives me that eye test, right? Like there's a lot of things where it's like, man, that dude is tough. He makes those throws. He's fearless. Like that's a guy I want on my team. Like there's that. Okay, I dig that.
Exactly.
But watching the other two, it's just like I don't know, man. Like and the whole Sanders thing, just because his dad is Deion is the reason why I wouldn't want him on my team. Right. Honestly, like especially in New York, like people don't.
Terrible.
Oh my gosh, it would just be a nightmare. Like if somehow we end up drafting him, it will be a nightmare for 5 years again.
I'll see you with your Sanders jersey. Shador, good man.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. As a pathetic, loyal, Giants fan, he would have to be my guy. That he has to be my guy. If they draft him, he has to be my guy. Like as much as Daniel Jones was A, B, C, D, whatever, he was my guy. And he had to be my guy because he's my quarterback. Like that's just love is your guy. As much as you have issues with him, he's your boy until you find somebody else. Like that's just what you do. Hurts is your guy. You would rather have whoever, but he's still your boy. So you
ain't got nobody else.
That's just the way it goes.
Yep.
No, but that's the truth. But like I said, I mean, I would like this last year again. Jaden Daniels has done really well. The quarterback that I was excited for to see, Danny knows this, was Bo Nix. That was my favorite quarterback coming out of that draft. I'm like, I like Bo Nix a lot because he gives me that. This dude is like, he's competitive. I love love the way he played. He's gritty. He's just that. I think he's from Texas. He's a Texas quarterback. I just like, and I like the way he played for the Broncos. He's awesome. He's that guy for me. Like, oh yeah, I would have him as my future kind of quarterback because I love the way he plays.
It's that test, man. You just can't describe it. It's just you watch some of these guys and you're just like, yeah, that dude's got it. And you watch some of these other guys and it's like, man, he's got God-given talent, but he doesn't have that. Like it's just you got it or you don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we'll see when you guys draft Shador. We're gonna have a draft show for sure. We'll go live. We will have that. We'll bring you on.
Just me.
Where you'll be there for it when that pick is on. I need to see your reaction.
Oh yeah, we'll do it. I miss Tom Coughlin, man. I miss Tom Coughlin.
That was actually one of my questions for you. Is would you rather have Tom Coughlin or prime Bill Parcells?
Dude, that's such an impossible question to ask. Oh, that's so hard. I'll say because I grew up in this era and watched more of these games, and I was so invested in the Tom Coughlin era, and those 2 Super Bowl runs were so magical. It has to be Tom Coughlin for me for a sentimental reason, right? You're looking at X's and O's and coaching. I don't know what the right answer is from a emotional. That's my coach. It's Tom Coughlin.
Fair enough. Danny, would you rather have Matt LaFleur or get Holmgren?
You're going to give me the Super Bowl. Holmgren is proven, so give me Holmgren. You got a
You
Super Bowl.
Holmgren?
I mean, it goes back to that question: would you rather have 10 seasons where you're winning, or 5 seasons with the Super Bowl? And Holmgren did that in 5 years. He got us to the Super Bowl twice.
Yeah.
Went to the Broncos and went next year and we won it. So I'm like, cool. Let's get that guy. I love LaFleur. I do. I do like him, but I think he needs to change like his offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach to get in Jordan Love's head and be like, dude, stop pussyfooting around out there, make a big boy decision, and throw the ball.
Yeah, I think for me it's a little bit different. Like if I were to go off of that Super Bowl thing, then you'd be like, "Oh, I'll take Dougie P over Andy Reid."
No, you can't take him over Andy Reid. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. Like it can't be about the trophy because I'm not picking Dougie P as much as I love him. I'm not picking him over Andy Reid. I'd love to have Andy Reid.
There's so many intangibles to a coach, but a lot of them are the same, right? Like the three guys that we just mentioned, right? Like Holmgren, Coughlin, Andy Reid. What do those guys have in common? They're OGs, right? Like they demand respect. They demand respect, and I like the new coaches. I like the young coaches. I think it's great that a lot of these guys are younger, but it's not the same as having somebody like Tom Coughlin or Andy Reid, who, dude, I've won. How many Super Bowls has Andy Reid won? 3, 2, whatever. I've done this. I've won everything I could possibly do in this game. You have no reason to question me or talk back to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that respect thing. And those old coaches, Bill Belichick, as much of an asshole as he was, he commanded that respect, right? Tom Coughlin. It's that old school football era, and it's kind of dying, right? Like it's kind of on its way out, right?
Like, how does he not get a job? It's just like Andy Reid was hired immediately upon leaving the Eagles, right? Immediately.
And it was
rules be damned. We're gonna hire this guy and stuff.
Yeah.
But how does Belichick not have a job? Like, I mean, someone asked me, would you take Belichick over Sirianni? Yeah, I would. I would take Belichick any day of the week. Because first of all, he put Tanner McKee in. But second of all, again, he would be afraid to make that decision. But like, who wouldn't? Are you kidding me? I understand the whole culture crap, but come on, you want to win or not?
I was kind of hoping the Giants would go get him, if he waited it out to see how this season ended. Because he came from there. People forget he came from the Giants. He was the Super Bowl the defensive coordinator for Bill Parcells when we were good, right? Like he's got a lot of ties there. So it's like, man, I was in the back of my head, I was like, if we can figure out a way to get him, I don't think every problem would be solved, but I would be more comfortable in him making those decisions, right? Like, okay, the dude's done it. He won 100 Super Bowls. Let him do it.
Right.
Yeah, he should have any job he wants at this point. If he calls in, I don't care who your coach is. He can go to Steelers and be like, that's cute that you have Tom and I want that job. They'd be like, okay.
It blows my mind. He ends up in North Carolina. I'm like, they play football there? Like, that's
coach there. There's got to be some team that's going to be like, please come coach us after this is over.
Yeah, I mean, what were the reservations? Like, why didn't they hire him? Because he wanted too much control? Like, he wanted to be the GM?
Right? Because Atlanta was the favorite to land him, and it turned out like the owner didn't want to give him all that control or something like that. And I'm like, I'll give him whatever he wants. I'll name the stadium after him. Screw you, Mercedes-Benz. Like, I'll give it to him.
Yeah, and I understand some of the reservation because he's older, right? And whatever. But don't give him a 10-year contract. But, hey, I'll give you 4 years. I'll give you 3 years. Yeah, do whatever you want. Go for it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, all right, guys. Like I said before, I have 7 kids, so I got to go tend to them before my wife kills me.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Love the insights. We're going to have you on again. We'll have some more questions. You'll have to think of some questions for us, some impossible questions.
Yeah, let's do it. Happy to jump in anytime you want. I'm curious about our predictions for this weekend and how that shakes out.
It's going to be amazing. You'll see. It's going to be awesome. We'll get you to agree to that Eagles tramp stamp. We have goals in this show. So
we'll have 2 a year.
Crazy. All right, gentlemen.
I want, so you might as well just get it done.
Take care, guys.
Yep.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, check us out at Huddle Buddies Sports Talk on Instagram. Follow us, comment. We'd love to hear from you. See you later.